All right, hi everyone. So today I'm going to discuss what is trigger in n8n. Basically, trigger is the starting point of every workflow, which means it decides when your automation runs, and without it, nothing's happened. Which basically means without your trigger, you can't have where your automation is going to start from. And there are 5 types you need to know. One is the manual trigger. Here, the manual trigger is basically you have someone triggers that particular action for you to be able to, for your action, for your workflow to be able to get started. So here is it. So we have manual. Here is our manual trigger, and we have, let's say, set field. So inside this set field, we want to add name, and we want to add age, and then we also want to add our profession, so here now, so like I said, we have trigger. Well, so this trigger now, that which is one of the starting point of your workflow, it means that what you actually need someone to what click on this execute for it to perform, for it to execute your workflow. So here now, once we click on this execute, it's going to pick it up. So I'm going to click on the execute, and now you can see it clicked on execute. So which means this particular workflow cannot run except that you actually click on it, and if you click on it, it's going to execute. So here we can see we have our name, age, and the profession. So here you have your response output, which is the name, the age, and the profession. Now let's go to the next trigger. The next trigger is schedule. So what is schedule? Schedule basically runs on different clock. You have daily, you have hourly, or whatever cron you want. So basically that's what schedule is going to work on. So let's go to schedule. I'm going to remove this. Let's say, then I go to here, I click on schedule. So once I click my schedule, I should be able to add this. So here, now this is the parameters required for the schedule trigger. We have trigger interval. You can decide to choose, like, your trigger should execute days in each day, and then what are the days between. Let's say today is Sunday, the day between you choose is 1, so it's going to run execute on Monday, now run execute on Tuesday. So this is just each of the day. Now at what hour in the particular day, you want midnight, you want the 7 a.m, so it depends on the time you want to choose, and at what particular minute it's triggered. And also, if you want to do it days between the trigger, you want to do 2 days, which means if today is Sunday, it's not going to execute on Monday, then it's going to execute on Tuesday. So here, that is how this workflow is going to go. And we also have another trigger interval. We have seconds. You want it to execute, you want this schedule to be executing every seconds, every minute, every hours, or every week, or every month. And you have your custom cron, which you have this. The format is already given here. You have the seconds, you have the minute, you have the hour, you have the day of the month, you have the month and the day of the week. Here now, you are saying that what you want it to execute every 15 minutes of the first month on Sunday. So that's why we have this 0, 15, the asterisk, the 1, and Sunday. So you are telling me that what you want it to execute every 15 minutes, first day of the month on Sunday. So here is the schedule trigger. Now let me execute this. Okay, it did not give it anything, so let me just 0, 15, 15, asterisk 1, and Sunday. So I'm going to execute this. So you can see it executes. So that is our schedule trigger. Now let's move to the next trigger that we have in n8n. So this trigger is called Webhook. So basically, what is Webhook? Webhook is more of like sending. So once Webhook is like an action that takes place when a particular thing has been done in an application. So in a case whereby you have your webhook and you register that particular webhook inside a particular application, so once an action is performed in that application, your webhook is going to execute. So let's say we have webhook. So here now we have our webhook, and inside webhook in n8n, you have your test URL and you have your production URL. So let me go to Tally. So you have your text URL. You can decide to let me change this to form submission, and I want to change this method. We have different kind of method. We have the get method, which is to get resources. You want to get your data. We have the patch, which is to update your data. That means you want to update your resources. Then we have post data. That means you want to save a particular data. You want to save a resources. And also we have the put. The put is also to update. So the difference between the patch and the put is the patch is basically saving some of the data, while the put is updating the whole data. Then you have the delete method. The delete method is to delete your resources, and we have what, the add method. So once we are able to select our method, we want to go to, so here some webhook requires basic auth or header auth or JW auth, but here we don't require any auth. And now we have our response. Depends on what kind of response you want your webhook to do. Do you want your webhook to respond immediately, or do you want it to respond when the last node finish, or do you want to use the response to webhook node, or do you want to respond it in a stream real-time basis? So here is what we have. And so once we have that, we should have, so let me remove this. So here we can come to our, so here we have this. So let's say in this scenario now, I want to edit. I'm going to go to my webhook. I'm going to click on this. So I'm going to paste. So here I'm registering my webhook inside this tally form. So I'm going to save the changes. So here, once I do that, and I go to my share, so I'm going to copy. So I'm going to copy it. So I've already pasted this data. So, and the response I'll give it is immediate. So that means we want the response to be given to us immediately. So after I've done that, I will go to my confirm pickup. So let me execute, because I'm using test URL. So I'm going to execute this. So it's going to wait to listen for any action that is performed. So because I registered it inside the tally form, so anything that is done on that particular form is going to automatically execute this webhook here. So I'm going to submit. I'm going to choose logbox, sending the logbox. So once I submit this automation where I registered for the webhook is going to execute. So I'm going to submit. So you can see it says workflow executed, and if you open the workflow, you see the data that is coming in. So inside the data you have your body, and inside each body you can see we have the where do you return your key, and we selected logbox, and our text we selected sending the logbox. So this is the body that is coming. So you have your body request. So I can decide to use my set field. So I can use my set field and then pick only those two data that I want. So here now I can say, I can go to, so we selected this. I'm going to pick this, and then we selected the notes. So I'm going to select this. So I can say type, and here I can give it notes. So here pin this data, then I should execute it again. So now you can see we have our type and we have the note. So basically that's how this webhook works. Now let's go to our app trigger. So app trigger is kind of trigger whereby we have your Gmail, you have your Slack, you have your Telegram, and once any activity happens, like let's say for example we have our Gmail, so you want to listen to when a new email comes in into your own Gmail account. So once an email comes into your own Gmail account, you want to execute a particular workflow. Either you want to be able to personalize this kind of email to know that, okay, is this email a spam, or is it a promotional email, or is it a job information email? So that is for the app trigger. And we also have Slack, we also have Telegram. Now let's go for Telegram. You can decide to use, depending on what kind of automation you want to build for that particular business. That is what you decide, what kind of app trigger that you are expected to use. Now let's delete this, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to say Telegram. So here I'm going to listen to a trigger. So you can see we have trigger and we have actions. So what kind of trigger did I want to listen here? I want to listen to on message. So which means when a message is sent to my Telegram account, I want to use that particular message and then do all sorts of activities that I want with that particular message that I got. So here now, and inside that particular settings, we have our Telegram account. So here we have, because I've already created an account, you can decide to go to your credentials and access your token. So to get your token, let's go to our docs. So here, to get our token, you create an account on Telegram. So once you create an account on Telegram, you'll be given an API bot access token. So that API access token is what you will use inside your application here, inside the n8n Telegram that we have here. So that is how you create your credentials. Now I've already created my own credentials, so I'm going to listen for a message. So let's open trigger. So here I've opened a trigger. So I'm going to say, I'm going to execute and say, so it's listening. I'm just going to say hello. So you can see it executes, because what the trigger that I give it is what message. That means when a message enters, I want to get that message. So that message, now I can decide what I want to use with that particular message. So here I can come to this place. Let me remove this. I can come to this place and say hello. Then now let me say I repeat this again and say, what are you used for? So it's already executing, and once I click on this, you see it executes and we will get that particular message. So we have message.test. So let me just say, let me remove the text and let me say just text alone. So we are going to re-execute again. Say, what is your name? So inside it you have what, your text. So basically that is how the app trigger works. And you can also do your Gmail account like that. So you can listen for any new email, any spam email, any promotional email. So that is for the app trigger. Now let's go to our last trigger, which is the when you execute another workflow. So when you execute another workflow, so I'm going to show you that. So here we have execute. So here, so you can see, so here is what we have. So once that trigger, so it comes with the manual trigger. So once you click on the manual trigger, so let's say I want to create a new sub workflow. So I'm going to say testing. So it's creating. So you can see now that is the workflow that was created by our sub workflow. So the name is my sub workflow. So let me let me move this to here, and let me move this. So let me give it my name. So once I give it my name, so I'm going to execute this now. So once I execute this, okay, so now take the data, say when execute another workflow. So now we go to the workflow that we created. So this workflow here, I'm going to say, so inside the data parameter, so it's either you want to accept all the data coming in from this first workflow, or you want to define your own JSON, or you want to define using the feed below. So, and here we have the items to return. That means the item you want to return to this first workflow here. So you can say all items from everyone, or items from the last run. So let's pick items, all items, and then I want to pick accept all incoming data. That means I want to accept all the data coming in from this place here. So once I execute, so once I do that, I want to, so I'm going to replace this. Let me just replace this with a, so let's first execute this. So I want to execute this. So if we go to our data, so you can see the data was passed from this first workflow here. The data was passed from this first workflow here, because if you open this, you can see the data that was passed from the edit field. So that data is passed to our sub workflow, and that's the data that we get here. So here now you can decide you want to add anything to it to get as a response. So you want to, let's say you want to add a set field. You want to add a set field, and so I'm going to execute this. And so once you execute that, so here you will see this is the data that come in. So I'm going to go back, and so I want to include on input field, and so let me try it again. So you can see, because I mapped it, so I'm getting the data back. And if we come to our execute, you are going to get that data back. But in a case whereby you want to get a new data, I can decide to come to this place and say let me say thank you, let me just say message, thank you, my sub workflow is working. So that means this is the response that we're going to get back for this from this execute workflow. So I'm going to execute that now. So if we go to, so you can see, because I added a new message, so it says the name and also the message. And if we go back to our data, that is the data we're going to get. So this is how sub workflow triggers work, and these are the 5 types of trigger you need to know, and to make your automation work and communicate effectively with one another. And I hope you understand this explanation that I've done. If you have any question, please drop it in the comments and let's discuss. Bye everyone.